Good morning students, welcome to the online teaching session of Academic World School Bemitra. This is our third lecture for the chapter The Indian Constitution. In the last class, we had discussed about why does a country need a constitution, and then we had discussed the key features of the Indian Constitution. We had started that. So students, we had discussed that India got independence in the year 1947 as a result of national struggle. Many people had participated in that national struggle, in the national movement of India, with an expectation of a free India. Now, after the independence, the Indian leaders and all the people of India, they had an imagination of the free India, that a free India would be based on democratic rules and regulation. A free India would be where there will be an equal participation of the people for formation of the government. As we all are participating in the formation of the government, we all are giving vote that. They were also expecting, they are also demanding that there will be equal participation in decision making. So with this expectation, the formation of the constitution started and it formed also. But it was not the result, it was not the effort done by one people or one group of people. It was the effort of 300 people who met periodically for 3 years for making a constitution which will be accepted by all. So we were talking about the Constituent Assembly, student. What Constituent Assembly is? Constituent Assembly is the group of leaders, or we can say it is a body of leaders. And they had a huge task. What was the task of this Constituent Assembly? You know, the main task of the Constituent Assembly was the formation of constitution. To frame a constitution, to make rules and regulations which will be accepted by all. By all means all the people who are in India. And as we know, India is a country of diversity. So this Constituent Assembly faced many challenges. Among them, the first one is diversity. Student, it was a huge task and challenge for the Constituent Assembly to make rules and regulations which will be accepted by all. All means all the people of India, who are not only different in terms of their religion, language, culture, tradition, but also they are different. There is a diversity in terms of their geographical location, in terms of their climatic condition. So it was a challenge for the Constituent Assembly. Another challenge was partition. Students, as we discussed, in the year 1947, India became independent. India divided on the basis of religion, and many people had come to India from Pakistan, and at that time there was a problem for the Indian government that to settle the refugees who had migrated from Pakistan, and to provide employment opportunity. In this sensitive situation, they need to make a constitution. The third one was very important and very difficult also it was. How it was difficult? See, when India got independence, during those days there were few states, there were few areas in India which was ruled by the ruler, which was ruled by kings, and they were having many options. They were having options, either they will rule independently or they will merge with the Indian nation. So, integration means to unite, to join, to collect. To whom? To all the princely states. Princely states means the states or the area of India which was ruled by the king. Okay, so here the Iron Man of India, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, played a very important role. He went and he approached, he negotiated with many Indian rulers to merge with India, and it happened finally in the year 1949. We prepared our constitution. So students, these are the challenges for the Constituent Assembly, for the members of the Constituent Assembly, for drafting, for making a constitution. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who is called as the father of the constitution. Now we will discuss the first feature of the Indian Constitution. The first feature of the Indian Constitution is federalism. What it is? Federalism. Now we will define each of them, the key features that we will discuss now. The first one is the if we define federalism, then it can be defined as existence of more than one level of government. Okay, the existence of more than one level of government is called as federalism. This is the meaning. Now we will understand it. How in India we are having more than one level of government. Are we having? See, in India we are having a three-tier system. What we are having? We are having a three-tier system. We can term it as the central government, term it as the state government, and this one may be the local self-government. In the class 6 we have studied about the Panchayati Raj. So this local self-government comes under that. Now these three level of government represents their own area. Okay. Now here we understood that in India there is an existence of more than one level of government. What is the need of this more than one level of government, students? It is need. As we discussed in the beginning of this session, that India is a country of diversity. A person or a group of persons cannot make rules and regulations which will be accepted and adopted by all the people. The person who is sitting in Delhi, the capital city, the capital of India, they cannot make rules, regulation for Bemitra, which is located in Chhattisgarh. So who will be responsible then? Those who understood it very neatly, very deeply. Who are they? They are the people of Bemitra. They are the people of Chhattisgarh. So we are having a state government. We'll understand it more. Let's take an example. Okay, suppose in a school, we are having primary and pre-primary wing. We are also having middle school. We are also having high school. Okay, and who is the in charge? The in charge is, who is the in charge? The in charge is principal. So it will be very difficult for the principal to take care the whole school. Okay, so what he has done, he made someone as the in charge of pre-primary. Suppose the headmaster, who will take care of the pre-primary wing only. Again the principal made someone as the in charge of the middle school. Suppose it is the assistant vice principal. Again the principal made someone as the in charge of the high school. He is the vice principal. Now it will be very easy for the principal to control, to administer the whole system very smoothly. Like that, we are also having a federal government where we are having the existence of more than one level of government. Why? What is the necessity of this? This is required, this was very important. Why? For a smooth and a better control and functioning of the system. Now, sometimes in India what happens? The state enjoys autonomy. All the states which are having in India, which are in India, okay, they enjoys autonomy. They enjoy autonomy in exercising power. They exercise their powers. But when there will be a confusion, when there will be a problem, they follow the central government. They follows to whom? The central government. So sometimes there also clash. Sometimes there are also problems that occurs. So the government works on three bases, on three lists, that is the union list, state list and the concurrent list. In the in the union list, the external affairs, defense is there. State list involves the internal trade practices, business practices, and the last one, that is the concurrent list, involves education, health, all those. So student, this was all about the federalism. As we discussed, federalism means the existence of more than one level of government. Here we discussed how important federalism is. And in India, we are also having federalism. How? As we are having a central government, we are having a state government, we are also having a local self-government. Now, we will proceed for the next feature of the Indian Constitution, that is a parliamentary form of government. What it is? The second one we are discussing. We are discussing about parliamentary form of government. So student, as the name is suggesting, parliament parliamentary form of government. A government which will be having what? Which will be having a government which will be having parliament. Now, parliament means, in class 7th we have studied, parliament involves Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha and President. This was all about the parliament. We understood. Now, who goes to Lok Sabha? Who goes to Rajya Sabha? The people, or we can term them as the representatives. How this person become representative? These persons become representative after getting elected by the people. So it is what? The people of India elects their representative. Who elects their representative? The people of India elects their representative. How they elect their representative? Through voting system, through election. Okay? Now, how the people of India are eligible for giving vote? Because of universal adult suffrage. Universal adult suffrage. Universal adult suffrage means right to give vote 18 or above. Okay, what does this universal adult franchise tells to us? According to this universal adult franchise or universal adult suffrage, all the people of India are having the right to give vote. Those who are 18 or above it. Okay, so the people of India, they give their vote, they elect their representatives to Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. They make the whole parliamentary system, and this is the legislative organ of the government that works. So how the system of the government works? It works through the parliamentary form of government. Okay, so this is the second form, this is the second feature of the Indian Constitution, that a parliamentary form of government. Now we will discuss about the third one. Okay, so we discussed the federalism or the federal structure of the government, then we discussed the parliamentary form of government, and now we will discuss about the separation of government. We will discuss about the separation of power or the separation. See, this is the third one that we are discussing. Separation of power. Okay. Separation of power or the division of the power, we can say. Student, it is very important to separate or to divide the power. Why it is important? We will understand. First we need to understand how in India there is a separation of the power. These are, we are having the three organs of the government. They are, yes, tell, legislature, we are having executive, and also we are having judiciary organ. We are having executive, we are having legislature, we are having judiciary. So the power has divided, has shared among these three organs. The legislature is responsible for making laws, whereas the executive is responsible for implementing laws or rules. The judiciary So, under separation of power, we will discuss how the power is divided among these three organs. Okay, the three organs of the government are legislature, executive, and judiciary. Legislature organ is a lawmaking body, is a organ which is responsible for making law. So, under this legislature, who will come? All the member of parliament, member of legislative assemblies, etc. Okay. Executive, who will come under executive? The Prime Minister of India, Chief Minister, IAS, IPS, etc. Now, under judiciary, the judges will come. So this was all about. Now, we'll understand it with an example. Why there is a separation of the power and what are the role of these three organs? Suppose a new law passed in the parliament. Parliament means, just before this we had explained, we had discussed what? That parliament consists of Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha and President. Yes, that is the legislature organ of the government. Okay, so suppose a rule passed there that all the people must wear helmet. All the people must wear helmet while riding a vehicle or the motorcycle. So this was passed in the legislature. Now who will execute that? Who will implement that law? That will be implemented. That will be implemented by the executive part. The rule, the law that prepared here will be executed here. Will be executed under or by the PM, CM, IAS and the police officers. Now, if anyone will not follow that, then he will be punished not by the police, not by the CM, not by the IAS officer, not by the PM, but he will be punished by the court, by the judicial system of India. By doing this, no one can exercise their full power. No one can misutilize their power. Each of the organ can check, can stop the misutilization of the power by another level of government. So student, this was all about the separation of power. Here we discussed about all these three organs, and each of the organs act as a check on other organs of the government. Okay. Now we'll go for the next feature of Indian Constitution, that is the fundamental rights. We will discuss now. How many key features we have discussed, students? We have discussed the first one. We discussed that federalism, and then we discussed parliamentary form of government. The third that we discussed separation of the power, and now we will discuss about fundamental rights. Okay, now we will discuss about what? The fundamental right. Students, the constitution makers, or the person, the people, the group of people who made the constitution, they wanted, what they wanted, you know, they wanted to ensure a set of written rights, which would guard the people from the misutilization of the power by the superior authority. Okay, so the people, so the Constituent Assembly, the member of the Constituent Assembly, they formed a constitution where they gave fundamental rights to the people, fundamental rights to the citizens. So student, the fundamental rights protect the citizen against the arbitrary and absolute exercise of the power. It protects us. Then how many fundamental rights we are having, you know? The Constitution of India guarantees 6 fundamental rights. How many? 6. The first one is the right to equality. The second one, right to freedom. The third one, right against exploitation. First we will discuss these 3 and then we will proceed for remain 3. So these rights that has given to the people of India, okay, this has given under the article 14 to 18, that has given the right to equality. Now, the right to freedom 19 to 22, and then right against exploitation has given 23 to 28. These are the rights that has given. What this right to equality is saying? According to this right to equality, all the people of the India are equal before law. The rules and regulations, the benefit are equal to all the people of India. No one can be discriminated on the basis of religion, language, place of birth, caste, creed and religion. In the matter of occupation, in the matter of the social living even, all the people will be treated as equally. That is what? Right to equality. No one can discriminate. Now, right to freedom, and this right to equality has given article 14 to 18. Okay, what this right to equality is saying? Right to equality is saying that all people are equal before law. Now, right to freedom. Under right to freedom, what the benefit, what the rights the Indian citizens are getting, you know? they are getting the right to speech. They are getting the right to express, right to move, and right to choose. Under the Article 19 to 22, the Constitution of India gives us the right to freedom. Okay, according to this right to freedom, all the people of India are having the right to express what they are thinking, to express their speech, to move any part of the India, to reside any parts of the India, and to choose any occupation that they want. They are having the freedom. Then the third one is the right against exploitation. Right against exploitation. Okay, what this right against exploitation, you know, student? If there will be an exploitation of any citizen, then they can protest. Okay, suppose the this right against exploitation has given under the Article 23 to 28. Under this right against exploitation, it prohibits the human trafficking. Human trafficking means the illegal movement of the human being or the persons. Forced labor means forcefully will give someone a task, will give tasks to them, or will give some works to them. Okay, the forced labor type. Then right against exploitation also prohibits the employment of the children. Okay, the right against exploitation also prohibits the employment of the children below 18. Below 18. So this was all about this right against exploitation, students. These are the rights that is given to us. Now we will go for below 14 it is. Okay. So right against exploitation prohibits the employment of the children in any of the war below 14. Why? Because it has given that the right to education. They are having the right to take the education. So we should not indulge them. We should not involve them in other war. So this all about the three rights. Now the remaining three are the fourth one that we will discuss now is the right to freedom of religion. The fifth one, that is right to this is cultural and educational right. In the flow I was writing, that's why I wrote. So this is then the sixth one is right to constitutional remedies. Student 3 we had discussed and they are right to equality, right to freedom, right against exploitation. The fourth one is right to freedom of religion. Fifth one, cultural and educational right, and the sixth one is the right to constitutional remedies. Article what we had discussed, 14 to 18, 19 to 22 and 23 to 24. Then 25 to 28, 29 to 30 and the last one is Article 32. Article 31 is not there. Okay, so what this right to freedom of religion is saying to us, is giving to us. This right to freedom of religion giving us the right to practice or propagate. The right to freedom of religion gives us the right that the Indian citizen can practice and can propagate or can spread or can preach any religion that they want. Cultural and educational right. What this cultural and educational right tells us, you know, that the minorities religious or linguistic institution. The educational institution of minorities, religious based and the linguistic based, they can open. Why they can open? They can open for the development of their own culture. For whose culture? For the minority. Those people who are less in number. These all terms we had discussed, students. Okay. Now, this cultural and educational right has mentioned under the article 29 to 30. The last one is the right to constitutional remedies. Okay. Right to constitutional remedies tells us that if any one of our right will violate, then the people of India can go to the court. Okay. So this was all about the key features that we discussed. The last one is remaining, and that is secularism. The last key feature of Indian Constitution. So how many key features we discussed, students? We discussed the first key feature as federalism. The second key feature that we discussed as parliamentary form of government. Third one we discussed separation of power. Then we discussed fundamental rights, and the last one that we are discussing is secularism. What this secularism is? The secularism refers to separation of religion from the states. Let me do that. Secularism refers to separation of religion from state. Here state means we can consider as the nation as a whole. A state which doesn't officially promote any one religion. Okay. A state doesn't promote officially So students, secularism is the last key feature that we are discussing. Okay, under secularism, what? Giving respect to all the religion, treating all the religion equally, and it also refers to the separation of the religion from the state. It means the state will not interfere in the matter of religion. Okay, and also a state doesn't officially promote any religion as their state religion or national religion. As many countries are there which are not secular and many countries are there which are secular. Okay, as we are living in India, India doesn't promote any religion as their what? As their state religion or national religion. So students, with this we have completed the chapter, the Indian Constitution. The assignments related to this topic has been uploaded in ERP. I request you all to go through and to download and to do it complete as soon as possible. Thank you.